Hello, in this video we're going to look at a variety of different options under the Insert menu item to help document and finish up your Google Doc. So let's start with headers and footers. I can say Insert Header, Insert Footer. You can see that there are keyboard shortcuts, but they seem pretty involved. Or I can simply come up near the top of the document, and double click, and that should bring me into the header. So let's move the title. I'm going to cut that. Let's move that into the header since that's something I may want to appear on every page. And I'll just put a little documentation there. So test document is on the top. Let me just add my name. Okay, and I can push that down to get some spacing if I like. Of course I can change the the font size, the various styling attributes, etc. Now footer is very similar. You can go down and double click to get in there. You notice you're going to see an option for a different first page header and footer. And if you check that box, then any header and footer you put on the any header and footer you put on the first page will be unique. See, right now there's nothing there, whereas the header appears on the other pages. So this would allow me to go back to that first page and make a separate header and footer. And a lot of times what you want to do is exactly what happened here, is suppress it on the first page if you have a cover page for a document. Okay, but this particular document I'll leave it, and in the footer you can put whatever you'd like. So I'll just put the date. There you go. Maybe I'll align that to the right. Now, if you want to make sure that you get some space between this last item on the page and the date, add that space into the footer, because that will guarantee that this can't intrude into that space. Okay, so working with headers and footers is very easy. You can use the insert command or the just double clicking in the area, and you should be able to get it in there. The next thing I'd like to look at is a footnote. So let's say that I'm writing this paper and this needs to be footnoted. I have a reference for this. So I can highlight that text and simply say insert a footnote. Okay, you'll notice the number 1 is appended to the text selection. And then I can put my note, citation, quotation, whatever it is I want down at the bottom. Now if I needed a second footnote, I would repeat the same process, and it knows now that this is my second footnote. So okay, so footnotes, pretty simple. Let's go on to the next tool. The next tool I'd like to explore is something called a bookmark. And what a bookmark does is it allows you to create a hyperlink to a particular space within your document. So let's see what makes sense here. So let's just say that this is where I'm keeping all my formulas or something. So I'm going to highlight that text and I'm going to say to please insert a bookmark. Now that bookmark has been inserted into the page. Just left align that. And I want to use this text for a hyperlink to get to that bookmark. So I can highlight it, use the hyperlink button, and notice I have a lot of choices in here with this hyperlink. I can actually link to any one of the headings that I've established earlier. So that's one choice, and remember that those are set here under the text style. We did that in an earlier video. You have an option to now link to bookmarks, and if you open this up you can see there is one bookmark, and I'm going to pick that and apply it. This is now a hyperlink, and when I click on it I can jump down to that portion of the page. Now hyperlinks in Docs works a little different, at least in a LiveDoc, in that when I click on it I don't instantly go there. I will have the choice as the creator of this document to either click the link and go to that spot, or this also provides me my option to change the hyperlink, to edit it, or to remove it altogether. And if I do click remove, notice I'm not removing the text, I'm simply removing the hyperlink portion of that. So while we're here, the other options under hyperlink would include some suggested sites and also the name of the document itself. So this is Test of Docs, which is the actual name of the document. So it wouldn't make much sense here to link to itself, but you know, I could do that, and I could also find more. So if I find more, it's going to open up my search window and allow me to kind of search on the fly for a link. Let me close that. Notice I'm not centered anymore because that window was open. Easiest way to recenter is simply to refresh the page. Now, if I decide that I don't need my bookmark, I can simply click on the blue graphic to the left of it and remove it. So now that bookmark no longer exists. If I were to try to hyperlink now, notice bookmarks doesn't even appear as an option. Next, we have a table of contents, and this is a very, very handy tool. If you've got a longer document and it's been formatted correctly, you can have Google Docs create your table of contents for you along with the page numbers. So if this was a 30-page document, it would list out the various areas of the document and the page that each was located on. Now the way that it knows to do this is because you've assigned headings, subheadings, etc. to parts of the document. So if I click on section 1, you notice I made that a heading 1. Skills was a heading 1. Language was a heading 1. So you can see, and here's a subsection that was a heading 2. So it's going to base it on those things. Let me get rid of that text for a second, and get rid of that text for a second. Let's put in the table of contents. So insert table of contents. It's going to give you two forms, with page numbers or with blue marks, blue links. So let's just try page numbers first, and you can see, great job. Picked up everything and gives me my page numbers over on the right. I can change this or I can remove it. So let's change it. And I could actually change the text in there, although normally I don't want to do that. Normally I want to make sure and get the document formatted correctly with its styles and let Google Docs do the work for me. Now you can see that in section 2 I have a subsection A and B. I was a little inconsistent in the way that I illustrated that, but let me go to the bottom of the document, and you can see that I'm in columns, and I don't want to be in columns anymore. So we'll revisit this in a moment, but I'm going to insert something called a page break. So what that does is it just pushes me to a new page. Notice that I'm still in columns, but if I highlight this, now like using a million enters isn't going to work so well, but highlighting the page break and then going to format columns, setting this to 1, I've now set the new page to a single column instead of 3. So I can maintain these 3 columns on this page, but start over again here. And let's call this subsection C. And there'll be some text here. Now, although that's subsection C, if I were to click here and refresh, nothing would happen. And the reason is, although I called it subsection C, I never really designated it as a heading 2, which would be the appropriate designation for the, to make it align with the others. Okay, you can see it picked up the formatting of the other subsections, and we looked at how to do that in a previous video. And now, if I refresh, it's updated. It tells me it's on page 5, so my table of contents works very well. Additional features include 2 types of page numbering, so let's look at those now. So I can insert a page number, and it's going to let me put it here in the upper right, but skipping the title page, skipping that first page, so it starts with the number 1 on the second page, or I can put it down at the bottom. And let me put it down at the bottom. In this particular document, I'm going to include the first page, whereas if I had made the choice to the right, this would be blank and 1 would start there. Okay, I can also insert a page count, which is very useful. So before I do that, I'm going to come into my page number, and I'm just going to type the word "of" with a space. So it's 1 of, and now when I insert my page count, it's going to tell me it's page 1 of 5, it's page 2 of 5, etc., down through the end of the document. I find that indispensable when I'm doing a longer document. I really want to know how long the document is and where I am in that document, but that's a personal choice. Next, I'd like to look at page breaks, and a page break is just the best way to force content onto a new page. So I know a lot of people are in a habit of doing things like, let's say that the section 1 should begin on page 2, and that this first page was just meant for the table of contents and the chart. So what a lot of people would do is they would click in front here and they'd hit enter, 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 enter. And the problem with that is that any future edits, whether they be changes in font size, some text edits where I make something longer or shorter, add more content, can adversely affect everything below it. So while I might get this section 1 right here where I want it at the beginning of the page, once I start editing above it, then all of a sudden it's in the middle of the page, and that continues to cascade through the document. So a simple change could force me to go through the entire document and adjust, take out some of those enters and add other carriage returns, etc. So instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to get right in front of the section and we're going to insert what's known as a page break, and that simply says that everything after the page break should move to the next page. So, and by the way, this is a much better way to work in all word processors. So if you're in Microsoft Word or something else, you should do the same thing as opposed to using those multiple enters. Those are not a good idea. Then I would just go through my document and I'd see, is there any other place? Yeah, section 2 shouldn't really, it should start on its own page. So I'm going to insert a page break there, bring that to its new page. And it looks like section 3 is already on its new page because of I had inserted the page break previously to get out of this column mode. Now, speaking of column mode, I'm here on this page, and you'll notice that we still have 3 columns. So I could come into any place in this text and I could insert something called a column break, and that's going to force that text into the next column. So a way to control the way the content flows within columns. The last feature I'm going to show you here is a very simple one. I'll make a blank line for it. I'm going to insert a horizontal line, and that is very simply just a visual option to organize your page, to chunk your information, to break it into different sections. And that should conclude our coverage of the insert menu option and all the different things that you can do using it.